digital pathology could easily solve if it is done properly. We had to like come in as path presenter, as pathologists who are thinking about this all the time. Like this is something that we need to resolve. So we worked with other people at other institutions, and then we sat down and they actually created this solution, which was a solution to how do we make this one seamless, and secondly, how do we make sure that all the places where the mistakes could happen, like the wrong patient information was added, so how do you avoid all this so that you make it in a much better legal way? Mistakes will still happen, but at least we decrease the number of mistakes that can happen because you're reducing the number of steps where a human is actually taking data and putting it in somewhere else.
Welcome, Digital Pathology Trailblazers. Today, my guest is Dr. Raj Singh, the founder. I don't know, Raj, what your position now is at PathPresenter. But before we talk more about you and about PathPresenter, do you remember the first time we interacted? Because you were one of the first guests on the podcast when I started the podcast. That was when
Right.
PathPresenter was a baby platform compared to what it is now.
No, it's been a good journey, and there has been so much help and support from a lot of people that are like very interested in moving the field, and I think that has helped us grow in a very positive way.
Yeah, so we met, I think it was 2019. That was the first time I think I published something on LinkedIn about me starting a blog, and you interacted with me and said, "Hey, would you like to see this platform?" I'm like, "Okay, let me see the platform." And this is how we got introduced. At that time, it was just a tool for making presentations for conferences where you were able to show whole slide images and not just screenshots of slides, right? So that you could actually show something at the conference. This was, and I think the title of the podcast was, I'm going to link it down below, a tool for killer pathology presentations. But since then, it has grown tremendously. I mean, to me, you're a famous person in the pathology world, but for those who are just entering the digital pathology world, let's start with you. I let you introduce yourself, tell the listeners about your background, and then we can talk about what happened to PathPresenter since 2019.
No, thank you, Alex. So like this is a great opportunity to talk about digital pathology. And as we talked previously, I'm a pathologist and I've been a pathologist for now more than 25 years. So it's been a lot of time in this space. I did my residency in India, then back again a residency in the US, and then I did a fellowship in dermatopathology, and then started working as a pathologist in 2007 in the US.
Mhm.
And I've always been an academic pathologist. Like my main job has always been to like sign out cases, and the other main part has been to train new doctors and pathologists as they come into the space. And that has been the two areas of focus. And like we talked in the last episode, also like Path Presenter was initially not supposed to be a company. It was just a project that we were doing so that we could fill in a gap on how we can educate our residents and fellows in a much better way.
Mhm.
And that we created this software so that we could use whole slide images that can be uploaded onto the cloud, and then anybody could come in and then use these images along with a lot of tools like creating presentations, creating quizzes, creating digital slide boxes. Whatever I normally do when I'm teaching my residents and fellows, we wanted to simulate the same thing with now whole slide images. So we created this platform that allowed anybody to upload these slides from any scanner, see them in one viewer, then create presentations, create digital slide boxes, do these quizzes, assessments, and it took off quite a bit because we were actually filling in a gap. There was no way people could like do this on the cloud or online because there were so many limitations like multiple file formats, storage issues. How do you integrate PowerPoints and digital whole slide images? Nothing was resolved at that point. So we were actually trying to fill in a gap at that point of how do you bring in digital pathology to enhance the way we teach and educate our future pathologist.
Mhm.
So that was where Path Presenter got started, and that is the point at which we interacted at that point in 2019. And the journey of Path Presenter has always been about filling in gaps in the use of digital pathology. So when we did this education part, then the FDA came along, and then they saw the platform and they said like this could be actually used to collect a lot of data for validation of AI model. So then we created a research platform that allowed the FDA and other institutions to like gather data from all around the world. And the importance of gathering data from all around the world is because you want diversity in your data set. You cannot use data set from one place to create or validate an AI model. You want a diversity in your data set to be create modules that actually work in the real world. And we were a platform that allowed this data to come from anywhere in the world into a central location, and then allow that organization to like use that data in a way that they would like to use it. So like, how do you bring all the data into one place? How do you bring in researchers to like interact with the data? How do you create annotation that can be validated? How do you download those annotations and then use them to like either create or validate an AI algorithm in some other platform? So that was the creation of the research. We call it a research module, but it was more of a module that allowed collection of data for building and validating AI model.
Mm-hmm.
So that was filling in another gap in the use of digital pathology. And then Dr. Parwani, who was at Ohio State University, when we both of us were talking, and we thought like the main like the digital pathology has been talked about for 10 years, and the first use case for digital pathology was for consultation, for a second opinion consultation.
Mm-hmm.
But there was no way current even in 2020 to actually like easily do consultations using digital pathology. People were either if you had a glass slide, you were putting the glass slide in a FedEx envelope and sending it over to the consulting hospital. Even if you were using digital slides for a consultation, at that point, the only way to share those slides was go to a Dropbox or a Box folder, upload the whole slide images into the Dropbox or Box folder, then let the institution know that we have uploaded the slides, and then somebody from the institution would go into the Dropbox folder and download the whole slide images, download all the paperwork, and then go back to the desk and then enter all the paperwork and then link the slide to that paperwork and then go ahead and give it to the pathologist for them to sign the case out.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many problems in this, like you're sending this over Dropbox or Box where you don't have a viewer, so you don't even know what you're sending. Secondly, when you're uploading this patient information, downloading the patient information, re-entering it into the LIS, there's a lot of places where you could make mistakes.
Yeah, and also not necessarily the securest way of dealing with the
EHI.
sensitive information. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it wasn't a very effective way of sending consults, although the main use case of digital pathology was always said to be like it was very easy to send consults and like use it for providing consultations. So then we actually sat down with Dr. Parwani, and then the team sat down and together, and we actually then said, let's create something that solves this issue. So we then created this consultation module, which was an institutional web page. So what we created was an institutional web page. So it could be OSU, it could be MSKCC, it could be MD Anderson, it could be Stanford. So they would have an institutional web page which they could provide to any institution that wants to send them cases.
Mm-hmm. So they
And
basically send a link to them.
yeah, so that institution would be able to log into that web page. And it is a very, very secure, HIPAA compliant web page that has been created with all the security inbuilt in the backend.
Mm-hmm.
So the PHI could easily be uploaded, the slides could be uploaded. And remember, like when pathologists are signing out cases, as a pathologist, I know I want to see the gross image, I want to see the clinical image, I might want to see the radiology images, I might want to see any prior cases of the patient that the patient might have already gone basically. So we need all that information to come along with the case. So we created this module with this web page where institution could easily upload all this data in a very secure manner,
Mm-hmm.
bring it to the cloud, and then through an HL7 engine actually bring those cases and integrate them into the LIS, not like give them to the institution for downloading again basically,
Mm-hmm.
because that defeats the whole purpose. So we created this entire solution where cases go onto the web portal, and then the HL7 engine would be able to take that entire information, first create a patient's information into in the LIS so that all the patient's data gets into the LIS. And now we have an internal accession number within the LIS for the patient, and then link all the patient slides and radiology images to that internal accession number within the LIS. So now it was very easy for OSU to assign the case to a pathologist, and so that they would just go into the LIS and then see these cases that are coming from multiple institutions directly in their LIS, open the viewer and see the case and report the case basically. And that was what led to building of the consultation platform.
Okay, so let me just um, rephrase. So, did
Yes.
you just build a bridge from the consulting institution to any institution that wants to get the consultation? That
That's how that's if essentially
like
right.
a
So
road.
what we have given them the portal, which is a bridge. We can call it
Mm-hmm.
a bridge that allows them to bring in consults from anywhere in the world into the institution in a very seamless manner, and also allows them to communicate. Like this is the bridge that will allow them to communicate with the referring pathologist, with the referring lab, because there are many times when I would like to talk to the other pathologists, like what I might need some additional information about the patient. I want to
Mm-hmm.
talk to them. I want additional stains. I want additional information because these are usually difficult cases. These are not straightforward cases.
Mm-hmm.
So I need additional information to make the final diagnosis. All these communication channels have to be built in a very robust way that are very, very secure and follow all the rules for HIPAA.
Mm-hmm.
So all the communication channels were built in once the report was created. How does the referring hospital get the report back very easily? All those things were thought about, and then the entire workflow was created where now an institution can just go into an OSU portal or any other institutional portal, upload those cases there. The cases directly gets routed to the Epic, the beaker system that OSU has. The cases are then assigned to the pathologist, and pathologists just go into their beaker as they would routinely do for their internal cases. They would see those consultation cases also there, and then if they need to communicate, they can easily communicate using the portal and then sign the case out, and then the HL7 will take that case and then send the PDF report to the web portal from where the cases was uploaded, so that the referring hospital can then download the report.
Okay, so I want to contrast two things here because
Mhm.
there is the option to for remote sign out for pathologists that was allowed during the pandemic and it's now still allowed.
Mhm.
But this is something we're kind of more familiar with. If somebody wants to practice remotely, or if there is an option, to stay at home 1 day a week, this is within your hospital, within where you're working. What we're talking about is the remote second opinion, where like anybody in the world can send cases to a referring hospital. It's second opinion, third opinion, whatever, some specialty opinion that the referring hospital does not have access to where they are practicing, right? Can be all over the world. So my question is, what is like how big is this use case globally and in the US?
Like this is a very, very big use case for digital pathology. Like if you look at these big institutions,
Mm-hmm.
like if you look at MD Anderson or MSKCC or Stanford or OSU or John Hopkins, like that is one part of the equation. So one third of their work is actually consultations. One third of their work is actually
33% is from somewhere else. They're
somewhere
consulting.
else. So that is one part of it. Secondly, if any patient is going to any hospital, like even if I'm sending a patient to Cornell, I'm sending a patient to NYU, the patient cannot be admitted into the hospital before the pathologist has actually seen the case and agreed with the diagnosis.
Oh, okay.
So that is called a referral basically. So when the patient is actually moving to from one hospital to the other, the pathologist in that other hospital first has to look at the case, confirm the diagnosis, and then only the patient is allowed to be shifted from one hospital to the other. So that is the second use case of this whole kind of system. But also they have to remember that 70 to 80% people are actually sending cases. They are not
Mm-hmm.
receiving cases. Like we are, when we talk about receiving cases, we're talking about the big academic institutions.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go to the smaller labs, if you go to smaller pathology groups, if you go to smaller hospitals, they are actually sending cases. So for them also, this becomes very important because they need a route to actually send cases to this hospital. So we are also working with the smaller hospitals for them to actually build this kind of portal where they can upload the case into that portal and then say, I want to send this to MD Anderson. I want to send this to Sloan. I want to send this to John Hopkins. I want to send this to somebody in Europe. So they also need this kind of a solution
Mm-hmm.
where they can actually send cases. So it's not only about receiving cases, it's also about sending cases. So it's a huge use case for digital pathology, for receiving cases, sending cases, for referrals, and all that has to be figured out how you can do this in a very seamless way.
It seems like the perfect use case that can be like attacked from all the other angles. So how I see it in the big hospitals, well, they're already probably digital, so they know how to read digitally, but the case they don't have to be bothered with digitizing the cases because the cases are being digitized in the smaller hospitals or in the institutions that are looking for the consult. At the institutions where they are looking for the consult, they do not have to be fully digitized. They can have like a one dedicated little thing to digitize the slides that they want a consult on, right? So there is no requirement that all the pieces of this chain are like fully digital and have deployed everything. It's basically like a bridge that bridges different use cases. At least this is how I see it from what you're telling me right now.
A great example is like one institution in Houston
Mm-hmm,
that is a smaller hospital compared to MD Anderson.
mm-hmm.
It's big, but it is smaller compared to MD. They send 1,800 patients to MD Anderson every year. 1,800 patients every year. And the distance between these two hospitals is 50 miles. And many times, like when they were sending cases to glass slides, and if the glass slide went on a Thursday, the patient had to actually wait almost till Wednesday or Thursdays before they could even be transferred to MD Anderson. 4 or 5 days gone because no treatment, with no treatment at all.
For something that's 50 miles away. So it's like what,
50 miles
less
away.
than 1 hour of driving to actually get the patient and get the treatment, and they were waiting a couple of
Yes, so
days
we
for the
actually
glass.
worked with this small hospital to create this portal where they could upload these slides, immediately ask MD Anderson to come in and review those cases. Within 1 hour, somebody reviews that kit and the patient can then be transferred the same day, rather than waiting for 4 or 5 days for just transferring the patient. And this is not one patient, two patient, talking about 1,800 cancer patients.
Mhm. So let's focus on this like before a picture. You said here in this case, before it would be okay, the patient can get to the hospital basically immediately within 1 hour, but they're waiting for the diagnosis to be confirmed by the admitting hospital.
Pathologist.
How was it looking before on the receiving institution end? Like if you say it's 30% of the work that those big institutions have that is referred from other hospitals. How was this integrated or not integrated in the workflow before there was the option to do it digital through the remote second opinion option?
Yes, so they actually had a couple of 3 or 4 or 5 people, FTs, working on just consultation basis.
Mm-hmm,
So what these people, if you go, like you can go to one of some of the major institutions, still today it is very similar what is done basically. So the glass slides would come in FedEx envelopes,
mm-hmm,
or like I said, if it was an whole slide image, it would come in through Dropbox or box folder
mm-hmm,
along with all the paperwork of the patient. So they would send all the paperwork of the patient. Now, if it is a if it is a glass slide, then what they would do is somebody is going to take the glass slide out from the FedEx envelope, take the paperwork out, go into the lab information system, first enter all the patient's information into the lab information system and create an internal accession number. And now then they will digitize those slides on a scanner, then get those the slides to be linked to the information in the lab information system, and then provide it to somebody within the department to sign it out. That was if you're sending a glass slide.
mm-hmm,
Think of all the steps where mistakes can happen basically. Now, if you're sending digital slides, let's say the other institution actually had a scanner and they're sending digital slides, they don't have to then use FedEx.
mm-hmm,
So they will go on a Dropbox or a box folder or some Google Drive or whatever they're using at that point, and they will upload this data onto that cloud portal basically. And they will also upload the patient's information, and then they will send an email with a link that this information has been uploaded into this system. Can you please take care of this basically? So somebody at the referring hospital will then go into that Dropbox, box, Google Drive, download the slides, download the paperwork, take that paperwork, then put it into the LIS system, upload the slides back into their own cloud, and then link it with the paperwork and then give it to the pathologist.
Like, I'm already overwhelmed with the description.
But that is how things were being done for the last 50 years
Oh,
without, and that is was such a low hanging fruit that digital pathology could easily solve if it was if it is done properly.
mm-hmm,
But it was, we had to like come in as path presenter, as pathologists who are thinking about this all the time. Like this is something that we need to resolve. So we worked with Anil, we worked with other people at other institutions, and then we sat down and they actually created this solution, which was a solution to how do we make this one seamless, and secondly, how do we make sure that all the places where the mistakes could happen, like the wrong patient information was added, the
mm-hmm,
wrong slides were linked to the paperwork, all the how do you avoid all this so that you make it in a much better legal way also, so that mistakes are decreased. Mistakes will still happen, but at least we decrease the number of mistakes that can happen, because you're reducing the number of steps where a human is actually taking data and putting it in somewhere else. You are making all everything through HL7 and messaging, so it becomes very where the number of places where mistakes can happen is then brought down this.
mm-hmm. So keywords that I hear here is low hanging fruit and seems like a no brainer solution. My question here is, how is this regulated compared to primary diagnosis? How is the second opinion regulated relative to primary diagnosis?
So, like in pathology and radiology, there are different rules for second opinion consultation.
Mm-hmm,
In pathology, when you are doing a primary diagnosis, you need, like if I let's say I'm working in a hospital and the hospital has two places. One is in New Jersey and the other one is in New York.
mm-hmm,
Then you know many places have that. Like they have the centers either in New York, they might have in something in Connecticut. So if I need to do a primary diagnosis for those two centers because they both belong to my hospital, I need a license in both places. I need a license for New Jersey and I need a license for New York.
mm-hmm,
But if it is a consultation case that is coming from Texas, or I don't need a license from Texas
mm-hmm.
basically. So for the consultation, one thing is I don't need a license to sign out the case that is coming from another state,
Okay.
and
What
that is
about
different in radiology actually.
globally? Does that make a difference if you would be receiving a case from Poland or from India? Doesn't matter, right? Your credentials and licensing that you have in the place where you're practicing, like, are good enough to provide
Is
your
good enough.
opinion, right?
So that is the first thing. Secondly, when I'm doing a primary diagnosis, like I have to do it on a system that has either an FDA approved system, or
Hmm.
secondly, if I don't have an FDA approved system, I need to make sure that I've followed the CAP validation protocol guidelines and I've done the study with the 60 cases or 80 cases that I need to do. And if I've done that validation study, then only I can use it for primary diagnosis. But
Okay.
for a consult, I don't need to do all that. I can start doing a consult if I have a system to look at a slide. I don't need to actually go through a CAP validation protocol or an FDA approved system to sign that case out.
Hmm.
So for consultation, we don't need to go through all this. Basically, you can do the consultations without having to go through this protocols. So that is the second difference.
So, question. So, basically, you as a pathologist, board certified pathologist, if you deem a slide on a particular device diagnostically valid, this is on you, and you can provide this
Second
second
opinion
opinion.
consultation.
So you
Yeah.
can, like, I don't know, if you have a nice tablet that you see all the cellular details, that's fine as well, right?
That's fine as well. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But for primary diagnosis, we have to go through at least the CAP validation before we can actually start using the system for primary diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
We don't always need an FDA approved system. Like that is a myth that many people have for primary diagnosis. If you have, well and good. But if you don't, and nobody has a complete FDA approved system. Like you might have a scanner and a viewer that is FDA approved, but you might not have a monitor. So you still have to do, even if you
Mm-hmm.
buy FDA approved systems, you still will have to do the CAP validation study no matter what.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
So,
that is the other difference here.
in theory, if you right now wanted to become just a consulting pathologist, you can, like, go home, take your tablet, and say to the world, "Hey, here me, Dr. Rajendra Singh. I'm gonna be consulting. Whoever wants to work with me, I'm ready for you.
Yeah, that is the current situation. There is no like regulation that regulate that you cannot do this business.
See, that's like a collateral benefit from the professional standpoint. If people, at a certain point of their career, if they would like to do it, they can do it without all the hassle of setting up a lab, having it, clear approved, maintaining their licenses all over the world. That is amazing. That is really, really
And
cool.
for the clear approved, like the rule that is now there in place is when you're signing out cases, you can, if you're using glass slide, you still need to be in a clear approved place. So
Yes.
so nobody can send cases like in a glass slide to me at home, and I
Hmm.
cannot like just sign out from home basically. But if I'm signing out digitally and my hospital has approved my home as one of the places from where I can sign out cases, I can still do them even if my home is not clear approved.
Hmm. Hmm.
That is the current rule. The limitation is I need to put in the report that I signed this case from from location X.
Okay.
So it should mention very specifically where I signed the case out from.
Hmm.
And the reason CLIA has put this in because they don't want people to sign out cases from hotels and airports basically
Hmm.
because those are not secure
Secure
places.
places.
So
Exactly.
that is the reason you have to put in. So you can still sign out digitally from a place anywhere that the hospital has approved to sign out from. So your hospital has to approve and take responsibility that pathologist X and Y can sign out from this case, and we are taking responsibility because we know that the environment there has been created to ensure that all the rules and regulations and the security is taken care of.
So let's talk about what is the return on investment of this solution. To me, it looks like there is, I mean, you still have to invest in digitization in one form or another. There is a little bit of less regulatory burden, but what does the return on investment look like?
So for for a regular case in a primary diagnosis, when the CPT code is around 88305 or 88312, what insurance companies normally pay ranges from like $85 to around $150.
Hmm.
That is what they would pay for an 88305 or something like that. For a consultation, institution charge somewhere from $250 to $400 per case, sometimes even more.
Okay.
So you can see there is a big difference in the amount of money, and you're not even preparing the material because most of the material already prepared and given to you. So you're not actually investing in a lab and all that to create that glass slide and all that because most of it is already done, and you're getting that all that information directly to you. So and the price difference is quite a bit. So it ranges. Some institutions charge $400. Some, if there
It's
is a
like
contract
four
with the other,
times the normal sign
four
out.
times the norm for the consult. So
Okay.
because these are difficult cases and you need the experts to like expert opinion for these cases to be actually evaluated.
Hmm. So the return on investment here is actually on the expertise itself and not all the things around that
No.
people like try to, I don't want to call it capitalize on, but when you calculate your return on investment, you like take into account every step, your histology work, the, I don't know, producing of the glass slides, like every single thing. And in this case, it's the expertise and not everything else.
It is definitely the expertise, but think of it in a bigger way basically.
Hmm.
Right now, let's say my institution is getting cases from the Middle East.
Hmm.
So we are still limited because we are just talking to one place. But now if you have this kind of a solution, your entire world becomes your source for cases.
Hmm.
Because now it's very easy for somebody from Argentina to just go into that portal and send me a case basically. Previously, that was not possible because we were not talking to so many. But now think the of an institution that can now suddenly have the whole world as their people that can send cases to them basically. So the return of investment is coming from increasing the geographical spread where you can now provide your expertise in basically.
Hmm.
So you can suddenly go from one or two or five countries to like 170 countries where you can now provide your expertise because it's a very similar process for every country. All they need to go is go into that web portals, upload the case, and then send it to you directly.
Hmm.
So in the portal that we have actually created for many of these institutions that we're working with, there is actually a registration button on that portal which allows an institution to go in and register that we want to send cases to you. And then the institution, the referring, the main hospital can actually see who's registered and they can approve of the registration. Basically. So it's not Path Presenter that does all that. It is on the portal that the two institutions can directly talk to each other.
So on one end, for the institution that gets the cases, you increase the geographical uh, territory where they can diagnose patients from. But for the rest of the world, it's giving access to expertise that's not available elsewhere,
Yep.
which is amazing, which is like directly benefiting the patients in countries where you just don't have those specialists. I mean, in my
Don't have
country,
the specialties, and even if you're sending it, you wait for 2 weeks to a month to get a diagnosis, which sometimes is too late.
mhm. So in my country, we have, I think, more or less 500 pathologists in the whole country, and we have like over 35 million people, which it's not even that bad when you look at the rankings in other countries. I thought it's like, what? 500? We have like, I don't know how many are in the US, 20,000, 12,000. I don't know. You will know better.
No,
Um,
it's somewhere in the 20,000. And
mhm,
most likely, I'm not sure about the number, so don't quote me on that. Yeah.
exactly. And so, and Poland is not even that low on the list. There are places that are have a lot less pathologists, and you have places that are under resourced, but you have places where the resources, like the private resources for treatment, are there, but the expertise is not there. So making this bridge is also something really,
Yeah,
really.
especially in pathology, because outside of the US, all pathology is mostly generalized pathology. So
Mhm,
one pathologist is doing everything. So they do like germ path, they do the GI path, they do the neuropath. So for them to become an expert in one specific area is very difficult. And compare that to the US, the whole thing is completely specialized. Like there is no like very few pathologists that do everything. Every pathologist is either focused in one organ system, so they tend to become much better at that one organ system. So the knowledge base and the expertise is much higher in the US because the way it is practiced in the US.
so if somebody now wanted to use it, um, who is it for? Is it for, like, because like you say, in the US you have people that are specialized. It doesn't have to be in a big academic center. It just is enough that somebody is specialized. Is it really enough? Like, who can use it?
It will all depend on on the institution, what are the goals. So like big institution, like if you look at all these bigger ones
Hmm.
or the major ones, not even the bigger ones, but the major ones, they actually want to provide the expertise to whoever is ready to work with them. So it's a win-win situation. Like outside of the US, there are so many patients like and pathologists that need some kind of support from a specialist in the US. So it can, and for the so it's a win-win situation for the department in the US, because now they can showcase their expertise to more people and get more work. And for the people outside of the US or even within the US, like there are many departments that might not have some specialists. Like there might be some departments that have nobody who's doing skin, or
Hmm.
they might have nobody who's doing neurology, neuropathology, because these are what specialized areas. So even in the US, we see a lot of cases being moving from one place to another because that department doesn't have that kind of expertise within the US. So outside of the US, it's not there at all. And even within the US, there are many places where something is lacking. They might have majority of it, but some specialities lacking.
Hmm.
So this balances out. I can send my case to anybody at Brigham. I can send somebody at Stanford, whoever I think is the best person for making my diagnosis. I can send the case to anybody now.
Amazing.
So it has always been about filling in gaps. Like we did the same thing in education. We did the same thing for research platform. We did the same thing for consultation platforms. Every time, like the reason like Path Presenter has grown so much in the last 3 years is because every time we are looking at these areas and we see like why hasn't something been done in that area, and then we sit down and we actually create a solution for that area, and that is what people like about Path.
So it looks like your understanding as a pathologist very much drives the product development process and roadmap. Um, Question here is, how were you able to do it so fast? Because when I look at the digital pathology landscape, PathPresenter is basically like budding like mushrooms for different platforms. You have a whole ecosystem. And so let me tell you what I know that you have. The presentation platform that I'm using very much for teaching and for my courses. I know the FDA platform that you already mentioned. I know you guys had a publication platform where you were able to publish books with whole slide images in them. Then I know about the biobanking or like a platform that is dedicated for pharma and research. Now we have the remote second opinion platform. Is there anything else that I missed? What else is in your
Like,
ecosystem?
and the basic use case is the primary diagnosis. So we have the
Mm-hmm.
complete package for the primary
Mm-hmm.
diagnosis also. So now it
Of
is like,
course.
yeah,
Like
that is
how
already
else?
there. And then like the recent thing that has come up is like for pharma companies is actually to how do you do some kind of a clinical trial for companion diagnostic drug.
Mm-hmm.
That is something that we are now thinking of working on because many pharma companies have very specific companion diagnostic drugs that are very useful to certain kinds of diseases. Like for the example is the drug by Daeshi and AstraZeneca for low or to new breast cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So now if they want to actually get the patients for these low or to new breast cancers, a very easy ways because we have this global platform which allows people to upload any data from anywhere in the world. So very easy use case is like you create this platform for the pharma company creates their own platform. Then any hospital or any patient from anywhere in the world can upload their slides into the platform. There will be an AI that will be running on the cloud that will look at the slide and then see whether the slide is associated with a low Artunio. And if they see that this is a low Artunio patient, then the hospital and the pharma company can connect together to see if they can provide the drug to that patient. So there is not even a pathologist involved here. It's
Okay.
allowing the pharma company to bring that drug to patients that might be sitting in South Africa, that might be sitting in Australia, by just allowing the patient or the hospital that is treating the patient to upload their slide onto the pharma company's web portal. And then the AI would run automatically on it and then predict whether there is a low Artunio or a normal Artunio. And if it is a low Artunio, then the communication can start and you could actually be doing this kind of a. So we are again trying to see where is the value of digital pathology? Where can it help pharma companies? Where can it help a pathologist? Where can it help an oncologist? Where can it help a patient actually? So everything is focused on what is the best use case of what we are creating actually.
Mm-hmm.
And like one thing that I always want to like tell many everybody basically, like I think this could be a good way to again reiterate that same thing. Uh, there are many pathologists that are still skeptical about whether we should implement digital pathology or not. Like there are many pathology chairs and departments that are still skeptical, like whether we should because they think it is not like the investment, like they because they're always talking about return of investment,
Mm-hmm.
so they cannot find the value to like justify the investment that needs to be done for digital pathology. But one thing that they all need to remember very, very clearly is AI is being built in a very big way. And there's so much AI work being done. And it is not about AI that will help a pathologist that makes a diagnosis. We are not talking about that. We're talking about AI that is being built to help a clinician or an oncologist to decide what treatment is going to be best for the patient or what is the prognosis for this patient. And there are modules coming up. Everybody knows that basically that there is a lot of work being done in this area where AI can predict what is the best treatment for the patient, where AI can predict what is the prognosis of the patient. So when these modules become available to clinicians and to patients, they are going to pick up the phone and
Mm-hmm.
call the pathology department and say, I need a digital slide of my own case.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, the pathology department will have no power. They will just have to provide a digital slide no matter whether they want it or not, basically. Whether
Mm-hmm.
So if they have not integrated a digital system at that point, they will immediately have to find a way,
Mm-hmm.
buy a scanner, digitize the slide so they can give it to the oncologist. So it
Mm-hmm.
will almost be like they are being arm twisted to go digital at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than wait to be arm twisted, why not do it now when you have complete control and power about how this system should work and how it can benefit the pathology department and the pathologist, rather than in the end when you will be forced to do it. This is coming. There is no way
Mm-hmm.
out. This is coming basically. So if you have to see it and you can do it, you can take control now, or you will have to do it in a couple of years.
Mm-hmm. And you're going to be forced to do it, because if you don't do it, you basically are denying care.
Yeah,
Because if
and you
this is,
cannot do that actually.
mm-hmm,
If the patient
it's,
is saying, I need a digital slide, or the oncologist or the clinician is saying, I need this digital slide, there is no way out.
mm-hmm,
Even the hospital C-suite is going to say, give it to them right now. If you
mm-hmm,
cannot give them the glass slide, they will go somewhere else. So you're going to lose the patient.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. See,
So
amazing.
they have to understand that this is the right time to implement digital pathology when they are in charge, when they can control how the whole thing is being built and benefits the pathologist and the pathology department as well as definitely the clinicians and the patient.
Mm-hmm. So, from all the platforms, or all the like subdivisions of Path Presenter, which one drives the most adoption at the moment?
Like initially it was education definitely because every department like I was almost using it for either the free public platform or a licensed version of the platform for education. But in the last 6 to 12 months, it has suddenly become the consultation and the clinical platform.
Mm-hmm.
Again, because when we are so like the good thing about Path Presenter is we don't have anybody on the marketing team. It's all word of mouth.
I know.
And whenever we are showing this platform, we are not trying to sell the platform to the institution or to the pathologist. We show them why this is useful to you, basically, why this will
Mm-hmm.
help you as a pathologist, as a pathology department, why this will help your clinicians, why this will help your patient. And that has been the goal of when we showcase these platforms. And when we show it, we never have to sell it. Everybody says we wanted this yesterday. They don't say we wanted this today. We wanted what you're showing us yesterday, basically. And this clinical and the consultation module has suddenly become the main thing that is driving the Path Presenter uptake in a much, much faster way, basically.
Yeah, and that's also like super straightforward regarding the return on investment. Um, it's a no-brainer, I would say. So before we finish this discussion, I need to talk about this. I know you guys put it on the back burner because you have so much work in the clinical space, but me being a veterinary pathologist, I need to ask you about, what about veterinary medicine?
Like for veterinary medicine, like the education platform is like right now ready to use, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And we have tried to actually talk to veterinary organizations and to veterinary pathology departments, but we haven't still received that kind of enthusiasm or success uh, to show like how do you actually use this for veterinary education in pathology.
I just need to create something, Raj, on Path Presenter.
Yeah. So I'm very open to it's an open invitation to any veterinary organization or the pathology department that is dealing with veterinary pathology, that we would be very, very happy to showcase the platform to you and show you how you can actually use it to enhance your education, not only for your own department but also like veterinary pathology is such a very important part of drug development.
Mm-hmm.
Such a very important part of like how this pharma companies are using this digital pathology in not only drug development but educating pathologists on how to like use digital pathology in a way that it could help them in their careers, basically. So we are very open to working with them, showcasing them what is already there so that they can start using it in a very effective manner. And the open public platform is not is a free platform. There is 55,000 users on it right now, 170 plus countries. They use it on a daily basis.
Yes, and
And
I use it, and I know that several of veterinary pathology online educators are using it as well.
so
So
we
it
will be
is
very
being
happy to
used.
work with them to bring content on it. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Raj. Thank you for the update. I'm not gonna wait another 3 years before we speak next time, because then you have too much to say and there's the path presenter grows even more. So we should agree on a more frequent cadence. But thank you
Yeah,
so
yeah,
much.
definitely. Because the other thing that we are very focused on is how do we now bring the new technology, which is the large language models and the vision transformer
Let's
models,
talk about
into the
that.
workflow. So we are not talking about using them again to build AI modules to make diagnosis, prediction, and because there are so many spectacular AI companies working on that.
Hmm.
But we are like workflow specialists, so we want to like see how we can bring efficiencies to the workflow by using these models. So within the next 6 months to 12 months, you will see a lot of this now coming into Path Present.
What can you say something? Can you already reveal a little bit, like which direction and which part of the workflow you're going to be tackling?
Like it's mostly about how pathologists can like sign out cases in a much better and a faster way.
Hmm.
That one, in a much more better, faster, and a safer way. Those are the three things that we are focusing on: better, faster, and safer.
Okay, I am super curious. When this comes out, I need to get you on the podcast as well. So thank you so much, and I wish you have a great day.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much for staying till the end. You've stayed so long, it means you are a true digital pathology trailblazer. And if you want to listen to the first interview I did with Raj, it's going to be linked here and in the show notes as well. You're going to see how much Path Presenter and the digital pathology place have come since we talked last time in 2020, actually. I said it was in 2019 in the episode, but I think I published it in 2020. So you'll see what my baby podcasting hosting journey was back then and what Path Presenter was back then. And it is so much more now. So check the video and I talk to you in the next episode.